Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. It is Tactics Tuesday. My name is Greg Elliott, and I am, as always, joined by my wonderful co-host, sounding better than ever, Zach Ingo Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm starting to come out of the haze of whatever the holiday period's been, because I still don't really know what day it is. All I know is that it must be as of time of recording, Monday, because I've been told I need to put the bins out. Right. And that shows you where my head is at.
No, I'm not even that caught up on what day it is yet. We've been trying to, behind the scenes, set up recording times and dates, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what
it's still very much sort of like we're in the holiday period of we will do whatever, whenever. Whenever we've got some free time, we'll record something.
Tip run number 3 tomorrow. Like it's just, it's that time of year.
It really is. I spent a lot of my day cleaning. We're hosting some friends New Year's Eve tomorrow. I'm very excited for that. But because of that, I suddenly looked around at my house and thought, I need to sort this place out. After an extremely sport-heavy, Christmas and weekend and this and the other, I'm looking forward to looking away from whatever's coming next in the boring domestic life and looking at what's going to be in the horrendous Saints life, where
we go in with hope.
Mate.
Yeah. All right, it's Tactics Tuesday, so I'm going to try and loosely keep this based on tactics, but let's face it, it's neither of our areas of expertise. But speaking of tip runs, the January transfer window is coming up. We're going to have some rubbish to get rid of, right?
You're right. That is the thing. I don't know how I feel. I almost feel like, would it have been better to go the entirety, if we're going to go down, would it have been better to go the entirety of January transferless, apart from selling, so we don't end up getting on board more players that we're going to end up, who are going to end up, my worry is anybody that comes in needs to deal with the fact that relegation could actually be a thing, and that are they happy playing in the Championship?
We've talked before, right, about who wants to come in this hopeless situation.
Somebody we've heard from 6 months of Premier League football, but he's also happy.
From Jurich that he wouldn't be here if he didn't think he could still keep us up, which is frankly borderline delusional. But
it's one of those things where
also I don't feel like he could come out and say anything else, because I think that, we're relegated, but we're going to put it in for 6 months, might get quite a lot of Twitter heat, so maybe take it with a pinch of salt. So, but
it's really difficult, because if that is truly what he believes, my worry is that if we get relegated, is he gonna lump through and stay with us? Because what I really don't want is that we have another manager that buys another bunch of players during a January transfer window, who then, after 6 months, have realised we're down and then want to leave. Like, whoever we get in is going to have to deal with the prospect of playing in the Championship but getting a chance in the Premier League. And there are some players that I'm happy that I think will stick about. I don't know. I've seen rumours knocking around of a Dibbling announcement. I think it was either today or tomorrow, potentially.
That he signed a new contract.
Yeah, and also, unless I've
been in the works for a minute, so that's fine.
True, but obviously that would mean that either way it would be slightly more expensive to buy him at the end of the season. But other than that, because obviously that's the other thing, is it does start to demean what contracts even mean. I feel like if we manage to get Kyle to sign for longer, happy days, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's decided his time here's up, and I wouldn't blame him for that. But
it's that's an interesting situation, right? Because now, do we cut our losses and get some money for him, selling him in January, or, as he's one of our best players, hold on to him to the end of the season and then let him go for free?
Is it? I genuinely don't know.
I'm honestly in the boat, Zach, where I don't think anything can keep us up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because it's one of those things where, and
I'm the optimistic.
Yeah, but is there? I don't know. You might know this question as opposed to it's something I've never really thought about. Obviously, you're awarded financial compensation based off the position in the Premier League, right? Does that include 18th, 19th, and 20th? So if we get 19th, are we going to have more money than if we came last?
I don't know. I think so.
Because if you're relegated, it doesn't matter. So it's one of those things that is it worth fighting to get 19th or 18th and keep our best players, or just as you pointed out, cut our losses and then kind of go down? Because I think we've got some quality championship players maybe in our team. Bear in mind we sent quite a few of them out on loan. It's just I don't know. I'm kind of scared for what the window will bring. What I say talking. There was a back and forth with someone in the YouTube comments about the idea of sending Brereton Diaz back on loan to Sheffield United, and I think it would work for both parties. If he ends up coming back up and they decide to buy him for a lot of money when we go down, that'll be useful money to have in the war chest. Alternatively, he gets football and potentially can go back to goal scoring. Either way, he stops being a conundrum for us. He'll get some confidence under his belt, and they really, really want him back there. So who knows? There's so much uncertainty and so much, and yet somehow I still think that we're going to end up keeping Solomana.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
He's contracted with us until 2026 or something. So
I mean, at this point, he's still our club record signing because Ramsdale's bonuses are the bonuses on Ramsdale becoming our club record signing imply that we stay up. So
yeah, what a world we live in, mate. It's very.
I've seen some other
harrowing.
pretty horrifying rumours. I've heard that Newcastle are going to be in the bid-in for Ramsdale. I don't know if that's going to be a January thing or a once picking the flesh off the bones once we go down. I don't know.
It feels very Football Manager-esque, right? Don't get me wrong. For some reason in Football Manager, Crystal Palace always end up going down, and it is absolutely wonderful to pick them apart for cheap. But for us, I'm genuinely looking at the squad that it would be interesting to go back to the Derby team that got relegated for the lowest amount of points and see where all of those players ended up and if anyone purchased them all. Because I'm genuinely baffled if some of our players go for a lot of money. Because
Well,
quite frankly,
maybe
you're
we'll
part of
save
a
that
team.
research for a wildcard episode in the future, and hopefully we'll be on slightly more points and it not be quite as doom and gloom as then. There's definitely one player I want to talk about who is definitely going to be in discussion points for most of, if not all of the transfer window.
Yeah.
And we will talk about him after our first mention from our partners. So, here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so big suspenseful build up. It's going to be really disappointing that it's Armel Bella-Kotchap. We saw him
yes.
we saw him on the bench
We did.
against Palace, and Jan Bednarek is, I think, suspended against Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
So do we see Bella-Kotchap come in? I mean, at this point, are the options Bella-Kotchap or the return of Jack Stevens? At which point, which is the lesser of those two evils?
Don't be silly. We got Ronnie Edwards, who we took from being out on loan to a promising League One side, getting absolute minutes, and then taking him away to make him train with our first team, who are looking like a championship team. Who, quite frankly, I hope for his development it was the right decision, and I really hope we start doing something with him because he's somebody that could get development. But the answer to obviously your question is it's probably I kind of sit on the fence that I've always sat on when it comes to Bella-Kotchap, which is I find he's not really played a lot since our relegation season. People talk about him being one of our best players, but we were still quite comfortably relegated that season, and it's kind of wild to me that a lot of the stuff that's come out in the media is all to do with him being like, oh, the previous manager didn't like me and they refused to sell me and I want to go to a big club and I just want to put myself in the shop window. And it's like one of those things where, as I think I alluded to before, I can't work out if I find it really refreshing that a player is just outwardly saying it and not doing the BS of tapping the badge and pretending they care, or I don't really want him to start playing really, really well and then not be immediately let go to I don't know, Bayern Munich again or something, and then throw another hissy fit. It's very much like, do we want people that will play, or if he put it this way, if a miracle happens and he gets into the squad and we stay up, and partly that's down to his performances. Do you know what? I'll eat my words on it. But
Yeah.
it's like, for me at the moment, it's kind of he doesn't look interested.
No.
And he only looks interested as sort of a self for his own career and self improvement and stuff. And it's like,
But
we are in a situation that needs
leads to
that.
performances, is that okay? Do we really care?
I guess
Like, if he
not.
comes in to put himself in the shop window against Brentford and has a 10 out of 10 world class performance, surely that's still better than even if Jack Stephens came on and gave her 10 out of 10, right? Like,
No, I agree. I think my problem at that point becomes a wider issue with just the way that football is nowadays, and that's dumb because that's never going to change. And as I said, I can't work out if I actually just find it incredibly refreshing to be like, oh, okay, you don't care about playing for little old Southampton. You never really have. You just want to do well so you can go off to a big club one day. Which, let's face it, is what a lot of our players have done, and we've dragged a lot of players back. You look at the likes of Theo Walcott and Lallana and all those kind of people that have played for sort of Arsenal and Liverpool after leaving us, after
yeah.
supposedly loving their time here, and then seeing us as some sort of weird retirement home. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if he comes in and he puts in some solid performances, and I'm sure my tune will change, quite frankly. But I just don't know how much a single defender can do to help galvanize this team into not, well, I mean, I was going to say not being terrible, and the problem is it's like, oh, we've not been terrible, but also like at this
We
point we're on
are
record to be the
currently the
worst
worst
team
team. Yeah.
in Premier League history.
It's really sad, isn't it?
Oh, it
All right,
really
let's try
is.
and take it to a slightly more positive tune.
Mm-hmm.
Many years ago, it feels like, in the last transfer window, we signed two exciting Brazilian prospects to pre-contracts
We did.
who will be joining the club, I presume, from the 1st of January. So one of them is a very exciting and dynamic left back in Wellington, who I know has already been seen on social media out and about in Southampton and getting himself settled. Do we finally get to see Carl Walker-Peters back on the right and play this exciting, dynamic new Brazilian left back?
I really hope so, because producing down that right hand side, like, man, it's bad that I'm kind of like, I don't really know why we're playing him on the left anyway, because
Yeah,
Manning's decent, has been pretty decent for us.
yeah,
It'll be exciting. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm concerned. That position's always been a bit cursed. You look at sort of Luke Shaw, McQueen, Juan Larios. My worry is he comes in, plays a game, and that is out for 100. I just feel like every time we buy a left back like that, they disappear off the face of the earth. So it's interesting to see whether he'll get game time, and I'm sure that conversation's come up with whoever's taken over. And I'd like to think that conversation's come up with Jurek, but also, as me and you have discussed previously, the board seemed unaware they were going to hire a new manager the day they fired Russell Martin. So I don't know how much in plan is in place, but I think the idea of an exciting young prospect is always good for football and us in general. It's one of those things where I do find it a bit weird that we're very much all about our academy and like to brag about that, and we've done the standard thing of poaching talent from abroad. That is the other side of it, right? I don't know how you feel about that, but I find
I
it
just don't
really
know how much
strange.
more Sam Ammo has to do to get game.
Yeah, this is my point. It's so weird that we will go like,
Why
oh, the
is
academy's
why bring it on
amazing.
Sulemana instead of Sam Ammo? I mean, if
Contract clauses, someone that's willing to go and shout at the manager. I feel like if I'm 17, 18 years old and someone's 25, 26 and, has had more of an impact and presence in previous clubs I've been in, I would have more of confidence to go and sort of say, you should play me and I'll show you why I'm amazing. Plus, again, we don't know what happens in training. We discussed this time and time again. There could be reasons. Remember, we saw Brereton Diaz score an absolute cracker of a goal on open training day, mate. never materialised after that.
Anything, you're right, yeah.
But
Crazy.
we were like, that's exactly what we've been screaming out for, and then you put it into play, and it's not necessarily the case. So I don't know. I feel I'm excited for them. Put it that way. Is that a diplomatic way of saying I don't really know how I feel about it?
Look, anything that's going to come in and give us a potential boost and give the fans something to cheer about can only be a good thing, right? And fresh faces and changes have to hopefully be one of those things. I want to take a slightly different approach next and reframe the question. But before I do that, I think it's time for a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
Okay, so as mentioned, I feel like the damage is done and we are probably already relegated. However, as an ownership and board that are already coming under fire, and perhaps rightly so, for poor recruitment and getting us into the position we're in now, they're not going to be in a position where that's sort of something they can come out and say and sit on in January. I don't think there's going to have to be some movement. Now, obviously, we talked about the issues you're going to have about who you're going to be able to attract, but if we take that out of the equation, what if we were playing Football Manager and trying to keep ourselves up from this point? What do we need to strengthen our squad to be able to do it? I mean, there's a very obvious answer, right? Someone who knows where the goal is.
Yeah, it's an instinct. It's an instinct for goal. And I think one of the things we need to do as Saints fans is to stop living in the past, and being like,
Even
I know what the solution is.
Someone who knows where the goal is, I felt at risk that we were going to bring Matt Letizia back in for cameos. So.
Nah, not even that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're like, why don't we go for a permanent transfer of Broja, or why don't we bring Ings back? We're desperate for that. We have this tendency to always fall back on when Saints went through a good spell, let's bring that player back, despite the fact that Broja basically stopped playing as soon as he realised he wasn't getting he thought he was going to get a transfer elsewhere and then didn't. Ings had, I think, an opportunity to probably stay before we shipped them off to Villa I know there was lots of arguments behind the scenes about what went on there. It's difficult, but I think first and foremost, you get rid of sort of some of the players that don't want to be here. You terminate some of those loans that are costing us money, costing them money. So Maxwell Cornet, you send him back. No disrespect to the guy, I just don't think it's worked out here. Fine, potentially Brereton Diaz, send him off to Sheffield United for a season and a half. He's clearly happier there. I don't think he can't be happy at the moment, not even being in the matchday squad. If an offer that's big enough for Paul comes in, send him off. And
he's our main focal point with the tactics we play at the moment. So what are we doing instead of that? Are we changing the way we play to actually play to the other striker's strengths?
Well, I thought the whole point of us bringing in a new manager was to kind of maybe do that. And this is what's really frustrating is it's like, again, the goals of the goal we got was, let's face it, like soft as heck. They should have probably done better to clear it. And then afterwards, when we actually had opportunities, we kind of struggled, right?
But we've talked before that Brentford's the real test, right? Because really, this is the first time he's going to have been in a position to have a full week with the players.
Correct, but where I'm at when it comes to Onuachu is the way we've had 2 games. If Onuachu is the answer to all of our problems, he needs to score for one.
Or do something, anything.
So
really,
yeah, I think for me the most important part of it, regardless of, is to ship out the people that do not want to be here, the people that do not want to be up for the fight, or the people that I think just their time at Saints have come to an end, right? I feel bad for Jack Stevens. There's clearly stuff going on in the background that is causing him to whatever, right? I don't want to speculate on that. It's not his personal life, isn't my business. But from a footballing perspective, he has had 2 red cards as our captain and has missed most of the season. He was very much a key point under Russell Martin. I don't think he's going to be being forward, so potentially it's time to move on, get some of the wages off the books, and then go from there. But I think the problem I've got at the moment is if I would end up looking for who is offered to me by intermediaries. That is where if I'm fighting relegation and I am trying to fight bravely, right? I think would be the terminology that's used, Greg. You don't get to really pick the players that you can bring in. You kind of
Yeah.
have to hope that someone is offered to you. And again, it's finding people that would be willing to stay with us through potential relegation, not bringing in somebody with this really slim hope that we're staying up. You would need to bring someone that's potentially sees being here as part of a project. And right, we might go back down, but then we might come straight back up and you have a chance to play in the Premier League again. And I think that was, again, some of our biggest mistakes have been buying people in the window in absolute, and bless poor Paul. He was one of those people where he was like the fifth or sixth choice striker we bought him very, very last minute on deadline day.
Mm.
And he's been good for us, but hasn't scored a goal yet. So where I'm at is that you get rid of the people who do not want to be involved, and you stop wasting time trying to give them minutes if they don't want to be here, and you bring in people that do. But my biggest problem is if we're going to do stuff like we're going to give Bella Kotchap a gamble, I wouldn't be surprised if, considering their recruitment so far, they try and convince people that it's going to be a Premier League thing and we end up with the same. I just can't see us not being in the same predicament where we buy a bunch of people who, as soon as relegation hits, don't want to be here because they've been relegated.
Yeah.
And that's my big concern, is that we're going to have to, we should almost, it's upsetting to say we're building to the Championship, but like, we've got to break some crazy records to stay up now. And judging by the last two games, the football's been more exciting. Do we think that's going to happen? You've already said you believe we're down, and you're the optimist out of the two of us. So yeah, get rid of people.
Try
Bring some more
to
people
steer us back to tactics on Tactics Tuesday.
Mate, we may as well just scrap that and call it Transfer Tuesday. But carry on.
I like that. You're right. That'll be the title. We saw on Sunday against Palace our midfield get trampled, basically, and maybe that wasn't a surprise looking at the team sheet because we didn't have a holding midfielder on there. Are we coming back to a point where, even though I don't think he's really been in his best run of games, where Flynn Downs is still the glue that holds the entire team together? Or do you think that with him coming into his form, if we just started Big Les, things would have been solid enough?
I think that it's crazy what a couple of weeks can do, right? Because like I was kind of happy for him to go back home to Chelsea and go off on loan somewhere else a couple of weeks ago. But he's really sort of proved himself the last couple of games. And I'm like, okay, let's give the guy a shot. Downs too can play an important role. We should not be too reliant on him. If we're going to have two holding midfielders, let's actually bring some holding midfielders in. Why don't we bring Shea Charles back off loan? Yeah. Like, where I'm at is there's a new manager in town now. He could look at the squad we've got, bring somebody who's playing very, really well and is in quite good form home. It might be they don't want to, I guess, ruin a good loan spell by throwing him directly back into a relegation battle, right?
Yeah.
But, I think that he was a shrewd purchase that Sheffield Wednesday fans are going to really want to try and make sure they get over the dotted line. He was in with that group of City players we bought, which obviously the problem is, I think, is at the time he was very much outshone by like a Lavia, right? So why don't we try and bring him? So we've got some rotation in that area, because clearly having both Aribo and Matty Fernandez in that area didn't really do a lot, because Palace just bullied us out of the park, really.
Yeah, well, in their defence, neither of them are what I would call a defensive holding midfielder.
No, I don't blame. To be clear, I don't blame them. They play to the best of their ability in an out of sorts position.
Yeah.
But clearly, if we're going to sort of play that way, we're going to need more players to play in that position. Relying entirely on Ugachukwu and Downs, Ugachukwu, who's going to need to build match fitness because he's not played in a long time.
Down to injury prone currently, it seems.
For
and
us,
if not, is perpetually getting booked, so must be a suspension risk more often than not too.
Yeah,
if you went there's two bets, right, that you want to put on this Saturday if the names are on the team sheet, and that's Flynn Downs to get booked and Bella Kotchap to go off injured.
But like, like back in the days when we had like Big Vic and Romeo, right? Like rather than just being relying. Because I remember we went through a period. I can't remember exactly when it was, but like Romeo went. He wasn't suspended because he never got red for us, but like he was off injured for a while, and then all of a sudden we were playing really badly, and it's because we'd like completely lost that position in the park, and there wasn't anyone that could really fill in. So, I guess that goes back to your earlier question and answers it a bit better, focusing on the areas that are going to be crucial for the new style of play. And if that means keeping Big Les for the rest of the season, happy days. We've already got that kind of under the belt. But potentially, in my point, bring back Shea Charles or get someone else to complement. Build squad depth in an area we actually need squad depth, and get rid of the areas we don't. And as you pointed out, we've still got people like Sam Amu to actually have a go that hasn't really had a chance.
Yeah.
Just it's difficult, but yeah, that's my kind of opinion on it. Is we try and shore up a position we actually need squad depth in, as opposed to all of these areas we have an absolute abundance of squad depth, right? Like I think we also keep forgetting, like on the wings and stuff, we've got like Ryan Fraser is knocking around as well.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, that's my point. Like there's quite a few players, we want to get rid of some of the what I would consider to be deadwood, but also actually shore up the positions we need. I don't think we need another centre back. We got like 30.
It's
Everyone always
fascinating, isn't it?
keeps
Because
thinking
Ryan
that.
Fraser, when we signed him, felt like such a big deal finally getting that over the line. But even under Russell Martin, he had such a bit part play to play in the season, and I just don't know if I see him suiting Juric's style in the slightest. So
I feel bad for him, sort of, in the sense of at the beginning, once we'd got sort of one promotion, everyone was very excited, and there was the people that could read between the lines. Like we never had any of the attitude problems or any of that kind of stuff that Newcastle and Bournemouth had talked about. But as the season went on, or like sorry, the transfer window went on into the season, I feel like me at the time, I reckon you at the time, and quite a few other people, when we signed that dotted line and suddenly he was here, we're like, oh, right, yeah. Forgot that hadn't happened. And then, has not set the league alight, but I kind of feel like that's most of our players have been championship players. And I think a lot of people predicted at the time we've made a very, very championship signing for the Premier League in him, but I don't know how much. I think from what I can remember rightly, it was just his wages, right? I don't think we had to pay a fee because
yeah, he
he
was a
managed
free
to come to an
transfer.
agreement
Yeah,
with Newcastle because Newcastle wanted him gone. So like nothing lost, but yeah, if I was him, I would be worried for my game time at this point. So yeah, it's a bit, wow, that's more doom and gloom than I want it to be. But like, I guess there is stuff we can do, but it's whether or not like the manager clearly thinks that we're not down, right?
yeah. But then again, he has to think that
Yeah,
because
he
otherwise,
has to
what are you
say
doing
that.
here?
He's got an 18-month contract. There was talk about him. There's a break clause after 6 months. We don't know what the actual reality of that situation is. But that could work both ways, right? It could be after 6 months he decides he doesn't want to bother fighting in the championship. He was very proud to be in the Premier League. It's an attractive prospect for anybody. And again, like it's going to be convincing players that you get to do 6 months in the Premier League. You might get them down to the championship, though. Is that all right?
Yeah, but
But
then
then
like
again,
there's an exciting prospect of coming with the getting promoted to the Premier League and building the squad that then is able to try and stay in the Premier League after that promotion, right? Like that
but it's
hopefully is
selling
exciting.
that. It's selling that to people where this is a career. Like we both have jobs, Greg, and like it's like you can have performance bonuses in your job. The idea of like, well, this is going to be really, really rubbish, but the good thing is that after this 1 year or so of absolute rubbish, you could be in charge of something special. And I guess the answer at that point in my mind is, okay, well, am I going to be paid anymore? Because like I feel like if you're an elite level, if you're like a Salah or people like that, like you care more about trophies and that kind of stuff. Like if you're joining a Southampton, you're not going to be expecting to win trophies
No,
apparently, or even stay in the Premier League. So for me, it's like, okay, so what is the incentive to play? It's like, well, either as a stepping stone, which we've already discussed is kind of a bit, it's not half as much as what it was beforehand. The other is going to be monetary. I don't even know if we can fulfill that anymore. So it's going to be difficult. Motivation to keep them here. There is a I'm about it as well. And again, the cynic in me is there is a motivation to try and keep people at a football club for like loyalty and the badge and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, these people are doing a job and they want to maximize the returns on their career. Maybe, and I think the problem again is going to be a trouble with recruitment unless you have players that are looking to revitalize their career. Like, a perfect example of that, Calvin Phillips at Ipswich, right? And it still isn't even really working out from there. But that is a perfect example of like, okay, well, I'm going to take this big drop for these reasons. We're going to need to try and have players like that. And I just can't see any players that are desperately in that position at the moment that are going to want to come to us to kind of help us stay up in an extremely hard period, or players that are going to accept the drop in advertising and sort of reputation from dropping down into the championship. But at the end of the day, that was also what was so much fun about the championship is, it's probably, it's already trying to gear myself up for next year. It's a really exciting league. Crazy stuff can happen. And yeah, you'd like to think that maybe there's the romantic part of football where there will be people that are willing to take on that challenge. And there have been people that, have done that and it's worked out for them, I guess, people like Ryan Fraser. So, maybe we'll get some people in somewhere in the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Because it will be exciting to see either way, I guess.
Yeah.
And we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, as we go through January. Well, that is just about all we've got time for today. As it is New Year's Day tomorrow, we're going to take a rare day off from posting. I'm sure that we will both be feeling slightly worse for wear anyway, as I'm sure will most of you. But we will be back with some wildcard content on Thursday, and we start building towards our game against Brentford and our push for survival in the new year. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening in 2024. It's been our debut year, and we are having a great time doing it at the moment. So thank you for listening. Zach, as always, thank you for joining me, and we shall see you in 2025 for a year of only positivity.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.